Hey, Bishop Moore community. Hope everyone's doing well, and you're in our prayers as always. During this Easter time, we wanted to take a moment to make some videos for you to just dive into things about our faith that maybe perhaps we've heard so often or been exposed to so often that we've kind of lost touch with how crazy they are, how our faith's content is the deepest mysteries of the universe. And so that's our invitation. Maybe this will be a good way for you to kind of get away from doing the normal quarantine daily schedule of, watching Netflix and going for walks and cooking. Um, Give your mind a chance to do some mental gymnastics. So, the phrase in our faith that I wanted to focus on, I think, is one of the most incredible, and it's just we throw it around so much. We say it so much, and to me, it's crazy talk. It's crazy talk. What if I were to tell you that Mary is the mother of God?
Mother of who?
That's right, the mother of God. Um, we say this all the time. We say this all the time, and we don't even think about it. God is eternal. God is beyond the material world. God is all knowing, all loving, all just. He's truth, He's goodness, He's love. He's the creator of all things. How can God be born of Mary, this woman who lived in, first century Israel? Um, it should be perplexing, and it is, and it is. So let's get into it. First of all, Uh, the world and our faith in God is full of paradoxes. What is a paradox? A paradox, I like to describe it as it's an apparent contradiction that is actually um, present in reality. And I think it's important to say present in reality because we can come up with hypothetical paradoxical ideas, but really a paradox is something that exists in reality. And it's apparently on the surface it's illogical. It doesn't make sense. It contradicts itself. How can Mary, a human being, be the mother of the being that created her, God? What? That is a contradiction. um, that'd be like saying, 1 plus 1 equals 2, but 2 comes before 1. What? No, it doesn't make any sense. So paradoxes are a part of our world. They're a part of our faith. They appear to be a contradiction, but then we recognize, no, wait, this is actually the way that reality works. Sometimes the simplest logic isn't always the logic that represents reality. So how did this all come about? So in Council of Ephesus 431, meaning 431 AD, we had a big, huge theological debate going on. The early church was full of these, lots of great theological debates. So we had this guy, Nestorius. He was the patriarch of Constantinople and a very smart guy. And he was basically saying, like, look, Christ has two natures and they are separate from each other. How can the nature of a human being mix or combine with the nature of God, divine nature? How can something that is temporary and created and will someday will die and suffer, how can that be a part of something that is eternal and beyond all suffering and infinite? So it makes a lot of sense. That is, he's avoiding the apparent contradiction. He's saying, look, how can Christ be a contradictory figure in his own person? Um, and then we have another guy, Saint Cyril of Alexandria. Notice there's a saint in there in his name. And he basically comes up, he says, no, 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 this is not the way it works. And so they have this whole big council and they work this out. And at the end of the council, they say, Mary is the mother of God. She's the Theotokos. I'm sure you've heard that word before. That's a Greek word meaning the God bearer, or the one who gives birth to God. So it's very, now from that point on, this phrase, Mary, Mother of God, works its way into our Catholic world. So there was a time when Catholics did not say that Mary was the Mother of God. They would have said she's the Mother of Christ. She bears the human person of Christ forth into the world, but she does not bear God into the world. And the Council of Ephesus, we disagree with that. Catholics don't believe that. We believe that Mary is actually the mother of God. So let me break that down a little bit more to avoid heresy. So the problem is this. If you go in the stories and you say God has two natures and they are separate, then God did not suffer. God was not born. God was not incarnated. He did not die on the cross. It's simply like, so there, and then there's a numerous amount of heresies that come out of it. You say like, well, the divine nature just kind of like came into a human body and assumed a human body, as if it's like, kind of like kidnapped, like a body snatcher kind of thing. That's not what we believe. Some other earlier heresy said it would have just been an illusion, that God kind of had this magical appearance of being a human being, et cetera, et cetera. Why is that a problem? Why is it a problem if Christ doesn't suffer and die? Why is it a problem if God doesn't come into a true human form in Jesus Christ? Because if Jesus doesn't enter into our humanity in a real way, then we're really not saved. And we're not saved in the way that God intends, which is a very intimate way. So it's really about the intimacy with which God saves us. He doesn't just save us, because he could have just been like, a giant claw in one of those machines, and he just comes down and grabs everybody's soul and brings us all up to heaven. He could have come down with lightning bolts and, I don't know, a giant army of angels with sweet fiery swords. Maybe that would have been a little cooler. But he chooses such an intimate way to come and save us. He, God, in the person of Jesus Christ, his person, enters into humanity in a full and complete way. He is fully human and fully divine. So what St. Cyril tells us and what the Council of Ephesus tells us is, yes, there are two natures in Christ. His divine nature, hypostatic union. He is a part of the Holy Trinity. He is God. He is one of the three persons in God. But he also has a human nature, fully human. Probably the most full human you could be is without sin. And both of those are united in the one person of Christ. So it's personhood. It's kind of personhood predicates. It comes before. It is the deepest principle of a being. And because of this, we know that God has fully entered into our condition. Jesus Christ was incarnate. He was born. He did live a human life. He ate, he drank, he slept. Jesus, who is God, he suffered for us. He entered into suffering. He took on all human suffering. And then he died, came back from the dead, and he lives now among us in his resurrected presence. And he did all this to enter into humanity to save it. So in theology we call this divinization, where God, what is not assumed by God cannot be saved. So we have to be, God enters into our humanity to save it. He saves it from the inside out. And that's why it's so important that we have interior relationship with Jesus Christ, because that's where salvation is taking place. Um, and so this is where this all spills over into this beautiful pronunciation of our faith, where we say Mary is the mother of God. Um, and so, no, Mary didn't give birth as if she existed before God as some kind of cosmic force who then originated the divine nature of God. No, we don't believe that. But what we do believe is that Mary gave birth to the person of Christ, who is fully God and fully man. She is literally God's mom in Jesus Christ. So wow, Mary's pretty awesome. Geez, what a gal. I mean, imagine, and like God approved of this ahead of time. He's looking at Mary outside of time, saying like, man, this is my girl right here. And she is chosen to be Jesus's mommy, to be God's mom. What a beautiful thing. And that's real and that's true. And that's why it's so important that we don't separate these two natures in the person of Christ and say like, well, God's over here and his human nature's over here. Because God is so intimate, he took Mary as his mother. He's so vulnerable to us. He comes down and he wants to be born like us. He wants to live like us, to eat and drink and sleep like us. He wants to suffer like we suffer. He wants to die like we die. He wants to enter into death in a real way and to come out the other side, taking not just his human nature, but all of our human nature into his divinity, into the divine Trinity. So next time you say Mary, the Mother of God, I hope there's a little bit of like a trembling in your voice when it's a big thing. It's a big thing, and it's a crazy thing to think about that Mary gave birth to God. So enjoy. I hope that's food for thought during your quarantine time. And as always, everyone out there is in our prayers. Thanks. God bless.